welcome to Information Please, your Peoria Public Library on the air, bringing you information about your library and your community. And this evening, my guest is our friend Renae Kerrigan, who manages the planetarium at Peoria's Riverfront Museum. Hi, Renae.
Hi, Tricia.
So glad you came back. I had you on before, and it was so much fun because people can come to the library and get more information about all the stars and objects in the sky that you get to show them, and it's just such a unique resource to have here in Central Illinois. So,
and I love working with the library. Museums and libraries are my favorite places.
Yeah,
and I'm a big fan of the Peoria Public Library system, so it's great to be here.
Yeah, I think you've done a program or two for us, haven't you?
I have, and we're hopefully going to have more coming up.
Yeah, well,
soon.
one thing that's great is at the end of summer reading, folks get to come to the people who earned their party pass by reading all summer will get to come to the museum, and part of that is some little planetarium shows.
Absolutely. The whole facility will be open, so all of our exhibits as well as planetarium shows. And last year people had so much fun, and a bunch of people who hadn't been to the museum before had a chance to come, and we really enjoyed having them. So we're looking forward to that again.
We are too. It'll be a blast.
Yeah.
So tell me again a little bit about, just set the scene for people who aren't familiar, and tell us about your planetarium.
Well, we have a very nice planetarium, especially for the size of community that we have here in Peoria. We were lucky to receive a grant from NASA at the time that the museum, the Peoria Riverfront Museum, was being planned. So our transition from Lakeview Museum to the Peoria Riverfront Museum. So my predecessor, Sheldon Schaefer, helped arrange that, and we were able to get a Zeiss ZKP4 Sky Master optomechanical star projector. So it projects a very, very accurate night sky, and every star has a fiber optic cable that projects a pinpoint of light up onto the planetarium dome.
Oh, that's amazing.
So in Peoria, we have a significant amount of light pollution. Maybe you can't always see the sky from your backyard, or at least not all of the stars. And you can come to the planetarium, and we have, sadly, in some ways, a better sky than you get in Peoria. But we'll always show you constellations that you can see even from your backyard. The brightest stars will shine through, so we'll show you what you can see from your backyard if you live in Peoria, or if you go out to the country area where there's a nice dark sky around here.
Be able to see. So what should people expect when they come to the planetarium? What's it like in there?
Sure.
What's a typical show like?
Well, and I was about to say, so we have the optomechanical machine, but we also have a digital projection system as well. So when people come to the planetarium, they'll either see a star show. We have a show called Stars Over Peoria that we do every day. We're open at 2:30, and that uses the star projector. His name is Luke, by the way.
Of course.
And then we also have shows that are a little bit more like movies, but they're immersive. So the dome, the planetarium dome, is exactly like it sounds like, a round ceiling that you're looking up at. And it will either look like the night sky, or we can project a digital projection show on it that is very immersive. You sort of feel like you're in the show. Some people say it looks 3D. It's not a 3D projection. You have to go to the giant screen theater to see that, but it is very immersive, and we do those about almost any science topic. So this summer, the museum will have an exhibit about dinosaurs called Be the Dinosaur.
That'll be fun.
It'll be a lot of fun. Kids can actually manipulate the dinosaurs in the exhibit using poles and levers and simple machines. And so, of course, to complement that, in the planetarium, we'll have shows that have to do with dinosaurs, or we'll have shows talking about the impact that killed off the dinosaurs. So we always try to integrate our planetarium programming with what is happening at the museum at the time.
So you get a full experience.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what does it cost to go to the planetarium?
Well, the planetarium is included with general admission.
Oh,
so
good.
if you come to the museum, for an adult, that's a $10 fee to go to all of the exhibits and any of the planetarium shows you'd like during the day. And there's usually 5 planetarium shows during the day. And for a child, it's an $8 fee, and there's also a discount for seniors and military personnel and students.
Okay.
And then if you live in Peoria County, there's an additional discount. So there's lots of options there. And of course, museum members, they pay a fee once a year, and then they get to go to all the exhibits and planetarium shows free for the whole year.
Everything's included.
That's
and that's a great way to go, because And correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't that get you to admission to some other museums around the country?
Absolutely. So we're a member of the, it's called Aztec, Association of Science and Technology Centers. And that gets you into over 500 planetariums and museums across the country. So for example, just here in Illinois, if you're ever taking a road trip to Chicago, it's a good idea to join our museum because our membership is less, costs less than a membership, say, to the Field Museum, yet you can use our membership card to get into the Field Museum, Museum of Science and Industry, and the Adler Planetarium.
Oh, wow. So you could just join here and have it at your fingertips.
Anywhere
and then
you
when
travel.
Go to Chicago, you can
Yeah.
save all those admissions.
Anywhere you travel, Chicago, or if you're on a family vacation anywhere in the United States, there's almost always going to be some place you can get into for free. I was just in Fort Lauderdale for a little getaway and went to a really nice little science center down there with my museum membership. So,
Oh, neat. So
yeah.
well worth the money.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what are you showing in the planetarium right now? What's the hot topic?
Well, as I said, we always have our star shows, and then we have a show about, we always do a Uniview show. So this is our software that is a digital database of the entire universe that we can fly around in using an Xbox
I was thinking,
controller.
how does anybody even do that? You know, how does anybody even collect
It was a lot of work.
the
So
entire universe?
it actually started with the American Museum of Natural History in New York, the Hayden Planetarium. They undertook this years ago to create this database. They used real scientific telescopes and data from real telescopes and imported all those data sets into this giant software.
Wow.
And so our software is based on that original database. And so we use that usually at 3 o'clock every day we're open. We have a show that uses that software that varies by topic. Right now we're focusing on the solar system, but it's very adaptable. We can use it to talk about almost anything we want. And we use it often in our adult events we have at the planetarium. We usually have an adult event about once a month. Coming up, we have a pub night under the stars where for a fee people can get beer and pretzels, and we talk about the latest news from space using that Uniview software. We can update it very frequently and talk about current missions in the solar system and what's happening right now.
Are those evening events usually?
Yeah, those are usually on Friday nights, 7 o'clock. And we have a wine and cheese series and a pub night series, and those are usually $25 per person for members and $30 for non-members. And it gets you 2 hours of entertainment, refreshments, and all the news from space.
Oh, lovely,
Yeah.
lovely date night.
Yeah, lots of fun.
Okay, and what is there that appeals to children at this
That's
point?
a great question. So the first show of every day is usually intended for our very youngest visitors. So
Okay.
kindergarten, pre-K aged visitors. And right now we have a show, One World, One Sky, with Big Bird and Elmo in it,
Oh.
talking about how even though we live in different places in the world, we all look up at the same sky. We can see the same things in the stars, and the moon is the same wherever you live. We also have a show that we frequently show for that age group called Perfect Little Planet. That's about all the planets in the solar system. There's a family going on vacation. They're looking for their favorite place to vacation, and they end up at the perfect little planet, which you might guess is planet Earth.
Of course, of course. Planet Earth is always our favorite.
That's right.
Do you get a lot of school groups? We're here at the end of the school year, and it's traditionally a time for
That's right.
those tours, load everybody on
We
a bus
are-
with their sack lunch.
We're gearing up for a school tour season at the museum. So in April and May, we are incredibly busy with school groups. We'll have up to 5 school groups in a day coming through the museum. So we're excited to see all those students, and we'll also be a little bit tired by the end of May, but it's a fun time to be at the museum.
Yeah,
for sure.
to really be reaching out to people and
Yeah.
making an impact.
Yeah.
That's what we like at the library too, is when you see the impact you have on people's view of the world and how they think about things. And
Well, my favorite thing about visiting a library is just looking at all those books and just seeing all the knowledge that you can just go to a shelf and learn about anything you can imagine. And to me, the museum's a little bit like that as well. Our exhibits will change, so it depends on what we have at the time about what you can learn about. But my favorite thing with students in the planetarium is maybe they don't think they like science. Maybe they don't realize how appealing science can be. Some people have the impression that science is hard. Oh, that's not for me. It's too complicated. But when you go to the planetarium, it's appealing to almost everyone. Space is something that kids can get excited about no matter what their level is in science or school. And so I think of it as a gateway to science. If you get them hooked on astronomy and space, then maybe they'll be interested in pursuing other types of science, like chemistry or biology or math. And all of that is very important to us in the United States.
All those things that wrap up into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the library we're doing a lot of the STEM programming
Yeah.
and a lot of science programs for very small children. But we have, you know, the books, the nonfiction books, which has not been something that I think people have thought about, picture books that are nonfiction for small children.
Sure.
But we've got them on every topic and can get more.
Yeah,
and
anything
so
you want to learn about.
our parents can, you know, build a series of, you know, reading to their children, coming to these programs, taking things home, take them to the planetarium, take them to the museum, and see even more.
Yeah, and it's so important to get young people interested, I think, in these important STEM topics early. And I'm especially passionate about letting girls know that science is for them.
Yes.
Because it's just traditionally, science is seen as a male realm. And
Yes.
that bears out when you look at the field. The number of scientists in the field, male versus female, is heavily skewed towards men. Same with just my profession. Science education is also heavily skewed towards men. So I'm trying to be helpful in getting young girls to know that I could teach about science. I'm a young lady teaching about science, and they have the same capability. They can also learn about science and math, and just as well as the boys.
Yes, having a young female scientist in my family, I hear a lot about the issues between the genders in the science field.
Yeah.
And so it's also probably very helpful for the very young men that you're teaching to show them, because
Right.
that's the best way to model these things. is
Absolutely.
here's a woman and she knows what she's talking about.
Right.
Do you get different reactions from the boys and girls at
Yes, I
planetarium
do.
shows?
I find that I do. I find that being the presenter and being a young woman, especially with the public shows, not too often, but there are times when older male visitors will go to my younger male intern and expect him to be the presenter because he's the male, and even though he's, you know, younger than me and the intern and less experienced, he's the man, so they expect him to be the presenter. But I have to say that's not the common reaction. Most people are very respectful and happy to learn from anyone.
Yes.
But I do find that young girls seem to get more excited in the planetarium when they are being taught by a woman. So I hope to continue to work on inspiring everyone, really. Science is for everyone.
Right.
And that's
all
my
of our
mission.
young people need
Yes.
science, but it's nice
Right.
to get them all there,
Right.
and not just the boys.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, do you have the opportunity to talk about space travel much at the planetarium?
Yeah, that's one of the things that gets people excited. So we try to talk about it. So we talk about human spaceflight to the International Space Station a lot, but also we like to talk about the robotic missions that are exploring the solar system. I think people there's a lack of understanding that NASA is still very much exploring the solar system, even though we're not sending humans to the moon anymore. We send robots to Mars. There are 7 missions at Mars right now.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
And they're not only NASA either. There's the European Space Agency has a mission at Mars. India has a mission at Mars right now as well.
Well, who knew?
Yeah, right? And we have a mission on its way to Jupiter, NASA does. There's a NASA mission at Saturn. And this summer, the NASA mission New Horizons will finally fly by Pluto for the first time. It's taken 9.5 years. It will have taken 9.5 years to get there. New Horizons is the fastest spacecraft ever built, and it will finally get to Pluto after 9.5 years of flight. It's moving so fast that it's just going to zip right on by, but it was designed to do a lot of science in the few days that it will be passing by Pluto. So we have no clue what Pluto looks like.
Where does it go then?
It'll go to several other spots in the Kuiper Belt. That's the icy asteroids that orbit in the same area that Pluto does.
Right.
And then it will just keep on going, like the Voyager missions, just keep going out. And
so Star Trek can find them in
that's right.
200 years.
Yeah, exploring out beyond our solar system.
Yeah.
And we'll have a Pluto party in the planetarium on the closest approach to help celebrate that and hopefully share images from Pluto and the latest science that's being released from the science team, and that's on July 14th.
Oh, cool.
So,
all right.
yeah.
Mark my calendar for that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have they, what are they calling Pluto now? Is it
It's a dwarf planet.
all right, so it kind of got the planet name back, because I know they demoted it.
So it was always, it was called there's a whole story.
Yes, I need to know this.
It was called a planet when it was discovered because it was the first large object discovered out beyond Neptune. All the planets orbit the sun on a flat plane, except for Pluto. It doesn't. It orbits sort of tilted like this.
Okay.
It was discovered in 1930 by an American, the only planet discovered by an American. So people were pretty excited about that.
Oh, yeah.
But here's the thing. Scientists started discovering more things out there by Pluto. And some of them were similar sized, and a lot of them were on similar wonky orbits, tilted orbits. Eventually, an astronomer called Mike Brown discovered about 5 or 6 objects similar to Pluto, and one of them was bigger than Pluto.
Uh-oh.
And they all orbit in the Kuiper Belt that I mentioned, all those asteroids. So they eventually decided instead of adding 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 more planets to the solar system, they needed to have a different class. And so there's 5 official dwarf planets.
All right.
There's Pluto, Eris, that's the one that's larger than Pluto, Haumea, Makemake, those are named after Polynesian deities, and Ceres. And Ceres is actually in between Mars and Jupiter in that asteroid belt, and it's being orbited by a NASA spacecraft right now as well. It's called Dawn. It's orbiting a dwarf planet, the first mission to ever orbit a dwarf planet.
Wow.
So.
How many spacecraft, do you even know this, how many are out there total?
You know, I don't know the total number because there's too many for me to sort of keep in my head at once, but
Yeah.
I would say about 15 or maybe even 20 current missions, because there's also missions orbiting the Earth and studying our planet. There's a mission at Mercury. The one at Venus, I think, recently just sort of ended its status. And like I said, Mars on its way to Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. So a lot of science being done in the solar system.
That's amazing. And I don't think most people know about that.
I don't think they do either.
It doesn't show up if you haven't clicked that on your Facebook feed.
Right. And that is something that we do teach about in the planetarium a lot. I mentioned that Uniview show we do most days at 3 o'clock. We often try to mention the current missions that are exploring the worlds in the solar system, because I do hope that people understand that robotic exploration can be just as fulfilling or more. We can get more information than human exploration. We can never send humans to Saturn. It'll take years to get there.
Yeah,
but we can send a robot.
And it can survive and get there and send things
send the
back.
information back. And they are human missions because humans built it. I mean, the amount of engineering that goes into building these machines is just amazing and inspiring. It takes often 10 years to plan a mission, and then it can take, like with New Horizons, 9.5 years to get that. It's just so much work that goes into these missions.
And you wonder too about when you look at turnover
Sure.
at businesses, you wonder about turnover with people doing these missions.
So the teams do have some turnover, but I believe in most missions the main scientist is usually pretty long-term on the mission.
Stays
yeah.
with it.
There was a European Space Agency mission that just landed a little tiny robot on a comet.
Wow.
Called Rosetta. Comets are only a couple miles across, and they have really elliptical orbits around the sun. So the engineering that went into this mission just really
to be able to
me.
land on something that small, it's right out of the movies we've seen.
Right, and
Disaster
it had to
movies.
have this very strange orbit because basically this little machine, it didn't have a big engine, so it had to catch a bunch of gravity and speed from going around the planets. It took 10 years to fall into a synchronous orbit around the sun as this one little comet. and then it landed a little lander on it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
That's
pretty incredible.
The math involved in that is staggering.
Exactly.
It's a good thing we invented computers so that we can do that.
And also just there was like 40 different scientists from 20 different countries, because this is from the European Space Agency, which is a bunch of countries in Europe working together. Yeah. So just the amount of cooperation and collaboration in that project is really inspiring to me.
And that's got to be good for the world too, to have
Absolutely, I
people
think
working
so.
together on something positive to increase knowledge.
I think so. I think that the more countries that get involved in space exploration, the better our human species will be, you know, because the more knowledge and the more exploration that we have, it can only improve us, I think.
Right.
That's why I was so excited that India sent that mission to Mars. It was their first mission, and they were successful. They spent a lot less money than a lot of the bigger space agencies do, and they got a mission to Mars. So I can't wait to see what they do next.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And why do you think it costs less?
Well,
Pay rates?
maybe, and
between countries?
I think that this mission doesn't have as many of the science instruments on it.
Okay.
It's called it's an acronym is MOM, Mars Orbiter Mission or something like that. But it was really just a test mission, sort of like our early Gemini missions were in the United States, where we were trying to make sure we could do it. So this was India's test mission. So it has a camera and it has a few scientific instruments, but it's not as loaded down as a lot of our missions are.
Yeah, that have everything, all the bells and whistles,
Right.
and every instrument conceivable. And
I do think also that it has to do with them having a smaller bureaucracy a little bit.
that could be. That could be.
So.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, do you have any other programs you want to tell us about that are coming up in the planetarium?
Well, sort of. It's not exactly a program, but something I'm excited about. I was selected as one of the 9 education ambassadors to Chile this summer.
What an honor. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I'm very honored to have been selected and very excited. So I will go with other planetarium educators from around the country to Chile. The United States has a number of observatories that they send scientists to in Chile. At the top of the Andes Mountains, it's a very good space to build telescopes because the air is clear and dry and you have high elevation, so you don't have a lot of interference from the atmosphere like you would if you tried to build a telescope in Illinois. And so I'll go to Alma, which is at about 17,000 feet elevation.
Oh gosh, you have trouble breathing?
They actually do. They make you use canned oxygen up there.
Oh.
It's like it's a radio telescope, so it's got like 60 radio dishes that all work together. And so they can see very, very far out into space, very, very far back into time. So I'll learn about that.
Amazing.
And the Gemini telescope as well, which is an optical, visible light, and infrared light telescope. And then CTIO, which is a mostly Chile-based telescopes, and a smaller telescope based on visible light as well. So I'll get to learn about the work that they do there and see some examples of the work, hopefully get to see the telescopes in action. And then when I come back, I'll try to spread the word of the United States astronomy initiatives in Chile.
Oh, wow.
So we'll be having lots of information about that at the planetarium, and sometime next year we'll hopefully have a show based on some of the photography that I take when I'm down there and the images that those telescopes produce.
Oh, great.
So.
Well, maybe we can get you to do a little talk at the library, too.
I'd love to.
Although we wouldn't have your planetarium, we could show slides.
Oh, yeah,
So-
yeah. I'd be happy to.
And maybe we ought to do another TV show about it, is
Yeah.
what we're talking about, so reach even more people.
Sure.
Well, and I'm sure part of that, it's always when you go on that kind of trip to network with the other people that do the same work you do.
Yes, and that's very, very helpful and exciting. And also, personally, I've never been to South America. I'm really excited about that. You know, the stars are entirely different in the southern hemisphere.
Different place.
And so I just can't wait to absorb that culture and learn everything I can while I'm down there. I plan on going into the planetarium and changing my latitude so that I can pretend I'm there and studying the stars a little bit before I go.
That'll be great. I think
Yeah.
everybody wishes they could do that. I know I'm a person who looks up, and I live out where it's fairly dark, and I can
Yeah.
often see a lot more of the sky than many people can can, but I'm always, to this day, amazed at how the earth turns and how things are at different spots. And I know at Christmas when I'm driving down my road what star I'm going to see over my house, and now it's over on the other, it's, you know, over here.
And it's so nice that you notice that. I think a lot of people don't look up. And I think it's once you start to be in the habit of observing those changes, then you can have a lot of fun with it.
Oh, yeah.
For example, right now you can see 2 planets, and maybe some of our viewers aren't aware that that really bright spot that you see in the west right now when the sun goes down, that's Venus.
Yeah.
So you're looking at a whole another world when you see that bright spot in the sky. And then in the southeast, you can see Jupiter, also very, very bright, a whole gas giant. 11 Earths could fit across it, and you can see it in our sky, looking like a very bright star.
Well, and I think people should realize that all the devices we have, you can download all sorts of apps.
Oh, absolutely.
That tell you what you're seeing. You put in where you are, and it'll tell you what you should see and what it is. And that's a great way, too, to prepare kids and get them interested in science.
I agree, and there's always free resources available on the web, too, if you don't have a smartphone. Yeah. And I actually do publish a blog about once a week called Stars Over Peoria, where I talk about the things you can see in this location and special events in astronomy coming up, and every once in a while I'll talk about those missions, those current space missions. And you can find that at the museum's website, which is Peoria Riverfront Museum.org.
Okay, we're going to have to put up a link to that, I think. Is there anything else real quick? We're about out of time, but...
Well, let me just mention the exhibits that are at the museum right now.
Okay, you got 30 seconds.
Okay, Stuff. The Art of Collecting is through May 25th. We have an outsider art exhibit called Witness to the Vision that's up as well. And then this summer, Dinosaurs in Motion. Don't miss it.
That's going to be great. Thank you so much for joining us, and be sure and visit the museum and come to the library and get lots of books and DVDs and even music. And we'll see you next week on Information Please.